After some 10 years as NATO Secretary General, former Norwegian Prime Minister Jens Stoltenberg will be stepping down from his prestigious position. The media seems to be having a great deal of fun speculating and guessing who will take his place as the main face of the Western military alliance.
In capitals and in military headquarters, there's an intense debate unfolding.
Who are the runners and which countries are the riders in the race to be the next NATO numero uno?
Who will be the next chief of NATO, the military alliance responsible for the defense of 1 billion people?
With all the buzz and interest on this topic, I thought I'd examine it myself, particularly from a Lithuania or Baltic-based perspective. So let's get started. Before looking at potential candidates, there are a few things to know. 1. The process of selecting NATO's Secretary General is secretive and undemocratic in that it's not an open and transparent voting process.
Nobody knows what's going on. And again, this process is so secretive that literally when we were referring earlier to the time that Stoltenberg was almost going home, his staff had applied for jobs back in Oslo and everybody was gossiping about it. Then those job applications were pulled back and that's how we knew he was staying.
Instead, the Secretary General is appointed by consensus of all member nations. Currently, there are 31 countries in the alliance, with Sweden on the brink of getting in, at least at the time of making this video. Finally, due to this nature of consensus, the person can't be too extreme in their opinions and will definitely need to win the favor of NATO's largest member, the United States. A lot of the media has been saying that the Secretary General should come from a country that spends at least 2% of its GDP on defense. A lot of countries fall short of this NATO target, yes, even Canada.
The document also reportedly says the Prime Minister privately told NATO officials Canada will never reach the alliance's military spending target of 2% of GDP.
The country in 2023 spent just 1.29% on defense. In case you were wondering, Lithuania has met this target in recent times and even boosted it recently from 2.05% up to 2.52%. Some people are also saying that the next Secretary General should be a woman, particularly considering that there are plenty of suitable female candidates out there. Gender equality is a key value of most or all member nations, and NATO has never had a female Secretary General in its nearly 75-year history. Other sources note that the next NATO leader should come from a country in Eastern or Southern Europe. With all of this in mind, who are some of the names being thrown out there? The list of people who the media sees as possibilities continues to change, but here are some notable names from the Baltics. In the summer of 2022, the Financial Times reported that Lithuanian Prime Minister Ingrida Šimonytė is a potential candidate. About half a year later, in January 2023, a senior European diplomat told Politico that Šimonytė was still among the potential candidates to lead the alliance. Former Latvian Prime Minister and current Foreign Minister of Latvia, Krišjānis Kariņš, declared his interest in the job in November 2023. By the way, Latvia's 2023 defense spending was 2.25% of its GDP. And finally, when it comes to Baltic names, the most commonly cited is current Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas. Mentioned as a top-tier candidate for the job for about a year now, she was officially reported to have expressed interest in the job in November 2023. It was reported that Lithuania's former president, Dalia Grybauskaitė, was also mentioned in the past as being among potential candidates to lead NATO. However, Grybauskaitė said that her tough stance on Russia would be an obstacle to her taking the post. This is a good point, not just for Grybauskaitė, but also for any of the candidates from the Baltics. All three countries have taken a fairly tough stance against Russia, and as LRT reports, the possibility of NATO being led by a person from the Baltic states is viewed with caution, since the countries traditionally hold a tough line on Russia, and it could be perceived as a provocation in Moscow. This factor may not be as important as it was in the past, as Russia has already made its moves and seems to be less and less interested in careful diplomacy and more interested in military domination. That is to say, NATO relations with Russia seem to be pretty bad anyways, and so it's not like they would get much worse with a Secretary General from the Baltic. Outside of the Baltics, Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has been mentioned by a few publications. However, in June 2023, after a visit to the United States, she was quoted as saying, "I have said before that I am not a candidate for any other job than the one I have now. And this has not changed after my meeting with the US President." In a recent video piece, German public broadcaster DW is quite convinced that Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte will get the job, despite his country currently spending about 1.7% of its GDP on defense.
It just may be that, the default is that people are comfortable with men who've been in power for a really long time, as Mark Rutte has.
It should definitely be from a country that has spent 2% of their GDP on defense And it would be nice if it would be a woman. So it's logical, it's Mark Rutte.
The Japan Times recently reported that Rutte had been approached by the United States twice for the role. He turned it down the last time because he didn't think his cabinet would collapse as quickly as it did. At least as reported by DW, whoever is NATO Secretary General will need to get along with whoever is President of the United States. Careful diplomacy and good interpersonal relations was something Jens Stoltenberg has been praised for, particularly in dealing with Donald Trump. With all of this in mind, Mark Rutte of the Netherlands has been seen as firm but diplomatic in his previous dealings with Trump, something that might be needed in the future depending on the outcome of the 2024 US election.
If we do work it out, that'll be positive, and if we don't, it'll be positive also, because
no,
we'll just think about those cars that pour in here, and we'll do something, right?
We have to work
but
something.
it'll be positive. But again, Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much for being here.
It's good to be here. And can I add to this?
I guess I don't really feel qualified to weigh in on who I think should be NATO Secretary General, because I haven't studied the background of any of the leading candidates, nor do I know much of their domestic policies. But just based on media reporting, it appears that Latvia's Karinš isn't being seriously considered, nor is Lithuania's Šimonytė. Estonia's Kallas seems to be quite often cited, but many sources still feel that Rutte is still the frontrunner in this secretive process. So what do you think about the process of selecting the next NATO Secretary General? Is there anyone I listed in this video that you would like to see take the job? Let me know by leaving a comment. For the Lithuanian word of the day, let's go with kandidatas, which, you might have guessed, means candidate. Kandidatas. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.